hit the ball consistently, solidly, you've got to have the ball position in the right part of your stance. In other words, you've got to be in a position where it's fairly far forward for a driver where you're sweeping it, and further back for the irons where you're trying to hit down on the ball. What we see on a lot of occasions is many golfers who have the ball way too far forward in their stance. Their body is probably aimed to the left, their shoulders, upper body for the most part, but the ball is too far outside their front foot. Generally speaking, people who slice have this problem. On the other hand, we see players who have the ball too far back in their stance, and I'm using a driver here, remember, have the ball too far back in their stance, and this probably is a result of the player coming too far from the inside, and that really is, for him, is the ideal position to strike the ball. Now, it's really a compensation, but it's very important, in my way of thinking, that you have that ball positioned correctly and consistently every time, because get it positioned consistently, it helps you to develop a consistent swing. Here's a little drill to ascertain your ball position. So important to get the ball in the correct place. Now I'm using a short iron here, and I'm trying to get the ball in the center of my stance. If I was using a driver, I'd want it way forward. If I'm using a middle to a long iron, I'm going to have it just a touch back between the two positions. But here I'm hitting a short iron. I've got a tee laid down. Okay, I've got this club, which is aimed parallel to my target. This club here is at right angles, and now all I'm going to make sure here is that this club is in the center of my stance, because I want the ball with a short iron in the middle of my feet. So the distance between the left foot and the center and the right foot and the center are exactly the same. Now, by lining these 6 balls up in a row, all I've got to do is I hit the first one, I then shuffle my way up, move to the second one, because obviously there's going to be a divot there. So from a time standpoint, instead of having to move a ball over and move these clubs all out of the way, at least I've got 6 balls which I can just get my ball position right. You know, what we feel we do in a golf swing and what we actually do are 2 different things. So very important to get the ball's position, especially if you're a slicer, you want to get that ball more back in your stance. So check your position with this little exercise. It's a fun way of doing it, and you only have to do it a few times, and before you know it, you'll have a consistent ball position. The beauty of analyzing your swing with video is that you can actually see what's taking place. A lot of times we just sense or feel what's taking place, and it could be totally wrong. But with ball position, it is important to get a consistent spot. Now, here's a little drill that you can get the ball positioned consistently every time. So with the driver, we want the ball forward in our stance, if you can remember that, with the short irons in the middle of our stance, and with the mid to longer irons somewhere between those 2 points. Now, the way I like golfers to go about doing it is to set up, put the club face behind the ball like so, get your feet absolutely together so the ball is opposite the little gap between both feet, and then simply move your left foot to determine where the ball should be positioned. So you see, using your left foot as a guide, now, if I just move my left foot a little, I'm going to have that ball just inside my left heel. Now I'm going to move my right foot to the right, a fairly wide stance for a long club. And now I'm in the correct position as far as ball location is concerned. If I did have a short iron, I'd move my left foot to the left, my right foot to the right, so to pretty much get the ball in the middle of my stance, but I'm using my left foot as the guide foot. So remember, put the club face down behind the ball, move your left foot first, determine where the ball should be positioned, move your right foot to the right, get the correct width of stance, good balance, and now you're ready to go. You won't have to worry about that ball position again. Standing too far from the ball or too close to the ball can create problems. We see a lot of golfers who set up to the ball where their arms are really reaching. They're a long way from it. Their upper body is bent over, and really that's going to affect their golf swing tremendously. Conversely, we see players who really they stand too close to the ball, and this creates havoc as far as being able to move correctly. So getting the right distance from the ball is very, very important. The question I get asked a lot is, how do I know if I'm too far from the ball or too close to the ball? Well, here's a simple way to test that. What I'd like you to do in setting up to it is to sense that your upper arms or your triceps are just very, very lightly resting on your chest. If you sense they're not resting at all on your chest, there's no connection whatsoever, then you're too far from it. If, on the other hand, you feel like your elbows are almost on your rib cage, then you're way too close to the ball. So just set up to it in such a way that, hey, just your upper arms, okay, your triceps are barely on your pectoral muscles. This gives you a link between the arms and the body, because it's very important in a swing that the arms connect up with the body, and that will give you the rough idea of where you should be. Now, some of it's determined by one's build. Okay, I've got long arms, so I can be a little further from the ball than, say, some play with short arms. But yet, if you use that test, just sense, just move your arms, just feel it, just have an awareness of your upper arms just lightly resting on your chest. And then, as long as your hands are comfortably hanging beneath your chin in that general area, you can be roughly certain that you're in the right position. So some players do stand a little further, even good players, and some players do stand a little closer, but I like to use that as a general rule of thumb. So remember, upper arms resting gently on the chest, and that's a good little test to see if you're the right distance from the ball.